You sir with the hat, you've had your hand up forever.
Yeah, say you've just finished the first issue of your comic and you're going to the Comic-Con and you want to give this free copy to as many people and editors and stuff as possible. And say you see Stan Lee walking down the hall, would you recommend going up directly, actively to people and giving them...
Absolutely. He's an old man, tackle him.
His legs will snap. And you have them for an hour.
I haven't met an editor yet that could run fast. But no, seriously, though, that's a wonderful tactic. I brought about 100 copies of my first, copy shop comic back in 19 diggity whatever. And I went to San Diego, which was a quarter the size that it is now, and I wandered around like an ant after honey, finding every pro that I could find who was there, whose work I really loved and had inspired me. And it was a great calling card. You could say, "Hi, Mr. So-and-so, I love your work here. I hope you love mine," and then run away. And of that 100-something copies of the book that I set out, I'm sure most people didn't read them, but those that did, 6 people sent me terrific letters.
Wow.
Charles Vest, Donna Barr, Dave Sim, hell, even Gerhard sent me a letter, and he doesn't write. And not only did I treasure those letters, and Charles Vest crammed so much text onto the back of a postcard, it's unbelievable, but he actually offered me critique that was really, really useful. But on the business side of things, now I had 6 support letters from known pros that I could impress other people with, including distribution. And so, A, it was fun for me, B, it was good feedback in some cases, C, it gave me some quotes that I could put on a book to impress other people with. I swear, I think my only customers were other professionals for years.
I will say, don't interrupt the editor if he's talking to somebody else. Like, use proper etiquette. Chasing Stan Lee, not the way to do it. Okay? But honestly, if he's talking to somebody, don't interrupt them, because then you're the annoying guy.
Or eating.
Or in the bathroom. I've had that happen. At a urinal, and the guy's like, "Hey, Jimmy Palmiotti, how are you?" It's like 2 urinals over. And I'm like, "Hey, how are you doing? Like, what's going on here?" And I'm like, "Hey, the tile floor is kind of cold, huh?" But yeah, there's places you kind of got to be cool about it,
Aww.
My advice is going to kind of be contrary to your perspective.
Aww.
No, in a good way. No, about 5 years ago when I was getting back into the industry, I thought I actually want to be the guy that reads every single sample that gets brought to my table. I want to be able to interact with the fellow creators. That's how I met Carolyn, and. It worked really, really well until I started finding I was leaving every convention with an entire box of stuff.
But the box of swag's the best part.
Yeah, but there was. It would get to a point where when you're doing a dozen shows and traveling, next thing I knew, at home, I had more boxes in my office of samples that people had given to me than the boxes of stuff that I kind of needed to read professionally or that I wanted to read. And I looked at it one day and just did the math and went, I really didn't want to become this guy, but
Library.
The amount of time in a day, I have donated a ton of things
the Hyatt cleaning staff has the biggest library of comic books after San Diego. They're the biggest, because you can't take all this stuff overseas.
Yeah.
I mean, you literally get hundreds sometimes, and you're like, "Oh my God, I feel so bad." And they're all signed to you.
Yeah.
And you're like,
"Oh." Yeah, so now it's become a real, I'm a little more selective, and sometimes I'll let the aspiring creator know, like they'll hand me something and I'll say, "Ooh, I know this cost you a lot of money to produce. I've got to be honest with you, it's going to go in a box of stuff that I'm probably not going to look at." And some creators have looked at me and gone, "Oh, there's a jerk." Other have looked and said, "Wow, I really appreciate your honesty there." So it's going to come down to what your one-on-one interaction with people are.
That's what strikes you.
Yeah.
You sir with the glasses.
Yeah, I was wondering if you could all talk about. I'm an aspiring comic artist and really looking to get into the industry, and I was wondering if you could talk about that terrifying moment of deciding to quit your day job and devote yourself to your work.
I didn't quit my day job until I had enough work to sustain me.
That took about 5 years from when I started making mini comics to when Scholastic needed my books on 6-month deadlines, and it was just impossible for me to work a part-time job even. So I've been freelance for 5 years since.
I was working in advertising for Franklin Mint when you used to get those little adverts in your TV guides.
The Hildebrand sword.
Yes,
The Civil War chess set.
Yeah, the Lord of the Rings chess set. Yeah, I was somewhat involved with those, and I was laid off, and a year into the layoff, like, whoa, okay, this is getting bad. They finally announced they would not be bringing me back. And I'm like, oh, great, okay, well, I got to do something. And I had spent that year laid off just totally focusing on, I want to begin the serious transition into writing. If comics aren't open to me, how can I break into prose writing? And my wife and I, we had heard an interview with Dean Koontz about how he had transitioned from being a school teacher to his wife gave him 5 years to make it as a writer, and we listened to the interview, and it was pretty cool. And about 3 days later, while I'm like looking at the job classified ads, my wife just walked in and said, "That Dean Koontz interview has been rolling around in my brain, so I know you're not going to be a slouch, but if Dean Koontz's wife could do that for him, I will give you 5 years." And within 5 years of that, Mice Templar was out. I had my first novel out, and
you bought your wife some cookies.
Absolutely, she gets the best cookies.
5 years is not a bad yardstick. I come from a small business background. All of my family either are independent professionals or small business people, and they all said, all right, it's not digging ditches or clipping poodles, but if you can do it for 5 years and pour back every penny you make back into it, my advice, learn to cook, because those ramen noodles get old after a while. They really do. And you can survive cheaper on food that you cook. You really can. If you can plow it all back in for 5 years, if after 5 years it ain't working, you got to do something else, kid. Here's your seed money. Blam. That's what they did for me. And my husband and I both started business at the same time. Here's a hint, don't start businesses at the same time. Just don't. But we lived in a shoebox, and I did nothing, essentially, but sit in the middle of my bed with a lap board because there wasn't room for a table in my little apartment and work. And that's how the first 5 or 6 issues of my book got done. But 5 years isn't a bad yardstick. You get a job that you can do part-time for a while. Eventually you've just got to make a leap. But luckily this is not like Social Security. They won't cut off your benefits, if they find out that you're making too much money on the side. One thing though, the thing to remember when you're in that phase, when you've started to make a little money but it's not quite enough to live on yet, is now is the time to really hone your work process, because that will always be changing. One thing for sure, you will never have enough time and you will never have enough money. Because once you're a full-time artist and you're thinking, sweet, I've got my money rolling in, I got to juggle jobs, but that's, I can deal with that. Then you're going to have kids. Or God forbid, one of your parents is going to get sick. Or God forbid, you're going to get sick. I had carpal tunnel for a couple of years, surgery, it was awesome. But just the same, something's going to happen to mess with your process so that you're not getting as much work done as you need to. Find something that can be shaved out of your process. You'd be surprised sometimes how much faster you can get and still do good work. Very important for that transitional stage.
Well, I'm probably the only one here who actually still has a day job.
Kids behind you.
Smart. The smart one.
I work as a designer full-time, and I do not sleep doing comics. Because I come home, I do my comics, I do my sketch before sleep, I have everything that I need to do, and I promote, and I'm on Twitter and Facebook promoting my artwork as well. So at the same time, so I'm working a 40-hour-a-week job as a designer. And I do a lot of stuff for the Air Force, which is actually pretty cool stuff. But then also at the same time, I'm getting a lot of freelance illustration gigs. Right now I'm doing something for National Geographic. And then at the same time, I'm trying to get my comics out, and I'm self-publishing my comics. And I love doing the comics. That's what I live for. So I love working at night. Like my really good hours are midnight to 2 a.m. That